Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Folks, how are you doing tonight? I hope you are ready to cap your weekend with some great Sabres action. This is the Crossing Swords pregame show brought to you by, of course, the place to buy a case, Outlet Liquor. And the Sabres, the place to get a win tonight is Vancouver. So let's get our panel in here. We got him, Gatesy. He's coming for the best hair still here on the panel, and he is charging. Gatesy, how are we doing this weekend, sir?
Very ecstatic for tonight. Big weekend.
Seriously, and he drives the ladies wild and the local sports broadcasters even crazier. It's Dwayne O'Mania looking for a big win in Vancouver tonight. How are we doing, Dwayne?
Feeling like I was hit by a truck. But other than that, excited for what's to come over the next 48 hours between Buffalo's game tonight against Vancouver. And then, of course, the NHL trade deadline is tomorrow.
Yes, the deadline is quickly approaching, much like the iceberg to the Titanic. What parts will be breaking off from this Sabres team, if any? But with that said, I want to talk about this West Coast road swing, out west road swing, whatever you want to call it. It has been a tale of two games for the Sabres. They go to the Oilers and get sloshed 6-1, and then they go to Calgary and they do something I don't even recall the Sabres ever being able to do, a shutout overtime win. Truly remarkable. A tale of two games. So with that said, let me kick it off with you guys. Let's go first, Gatesy. What game or what game of these two is more reflective of where the Sabres are at right now?
I would say that second game against Calgary, I mean, the first game against Edmonton, I mean, that's kind of been the tale of the last 10 years. And yeah, the past month, you've kind of seen the team start to go past that point. But I mean, Edmonton's such a explosive team. It's really hard to keep up with them for 60 minutes. And unfortunately, wasn't their best game, but they rebounded the next day, which I think is the most important thing.
That 6-1 L from the Sabres against Edmonton. It was wild, man, because I thought for the first time this season they had a legitimate shot at winning their third in a row. They were on such high of highs, right? After Jack Eichel night, and then feeding off his comments going into Toronto, and then really controlling that game. Honestly, I think maybe in the Heritage Classic, maybe there was 10 minutes where they were kind of on their heels in that game. But I mean, they outplayed and they wanted it more than Toronto. And those were the first time we've seen them win back-to-back this year. But that was the first time this season in a back-to-back situation where you looked at them like they were the better team in both games. And you really felt like, yeah, they might go on I don't want to say a run, because I mean, when you say a run here, you're hoping to build momentum going into like maybe a playoff run, for a playoff berth, but just a run, like maybe string some more wins together. And they got slapped against Edmonton. Maybe that just they got too high. You never want to get too high, you never want to get too low, and maybe that was the situation at Edmonton. And then they come back and play a really good defensive game against Calgary. Dustin Tokarski, I mean, where did that come from? And then obviously one of the greatest overtime goals I think I've ever seen. Because Gatesy, that's like a goalie's worst nightmare, man. An absolute goalie's worst nightmare. You're playing the puck. It's just you and one guy. Like I'm the type of guy, man, who he hesitated. He hesitated way too much. He was up. It wasn't the inability to play the puck. He got himself overthinking while trying to make a play, and he fucked up. And And it cost them, obviously, Tage Thompson. It was a pretty empty net goal, too. He had to put the puck. He had to grab the puck from between his legs to put it in the net. But, I mean, what a way to end that game.
Certainly exciting. Like, the way that game went, you kind of felt in the back of your head, oh, they're going to fall apart in the last minute. But Justin McCarthy held strong, and the team really rallied together, and they got 2 points, which I was really, really happy with.
Yeah, and Sabres fans have been happy for the most part recently with the team. The Edmonton game was kind of a blip on the radar. Obviously, they got run over by Reinhart. As a matter of fact, their last 2 losses were both by a score of 6-1. That's a little bit eerie. With that said, yeah, it's not about going on a run to the playoffs right now because obviously that's not happening. It's about going on a war path. There's no direction. There's no question. These Sabres need to get on a war path. And yeah, they're 3-2 in their last 5. And the thing is, I'm looking at Vancouver at home tonight. They're 1-4 in their last 5, and they're coming off a back-to-back, a bad loss at Calgary last night. After Buffalo kind of hailed them the night before, so maybe Calgary was feeling fired up in that back-to-back after the tough loss against Buffalo. That always is in play at sports. But with that said, I mean, I'm coming into this looking at this line at Vancouver minus 210, gentlemen. I mean, so I'll beg the question since we've been talking about the Sabres finding ways to learn, and we'll keep learning ways to win games. Do the Sabres have a shot tonight in Vancouver?
Yeah. Vancouver is a team that's they were expected to be better. Kind of like what the Sabres were last year to start, when they made the Taylor Hall signing and Eric Stahl, all that jazz. Like, they were expected to be better. And then there's kind of like in this going into the trade deadline, you're probably going to see JT Miller be shipped out. One of their, better players. Gates, he's a center, right? I think JT's a center.
He has a crazy points series, like 72 points and 60
Yeah, he's
games.
having an unbelievable year, but they're in a situation where like they fired their head coach, they fired their GM, like they're in rebuild mode, and they're probably going to ship off a guy like JT Miller for a huge return. This is another game where I think Buffalo should be the favorite to win with the way they've been playing in the last 30 some odd days. Like, I can't see us losing to Vancouver, and I like Vancouver. I'm actually a huge fan of the Canucks. They're actually, not many people know, they came into the league. Well, I hope they know. They came in the league the same year as the Sabres. They're like our expansion brothers or cousins or whatever you want to call them. But they're kind of in a similar situation as Buffalo. They're in the midst of a rebuild, and they're going to be probably sellers at the deadline, just like us. And there's no reason Buffalo can't come out and control this game from start to finish.
Yeah, Vancouver's been streaky all season. They'll win 3, they'll lose 3 in a row. It kind of right now they're at the tail end of their losing streak. Hopefully Buffalo can capitalize on that, bring some energy like they did against Vegas and Toronto. And I mean, this team's young, and they've really kind of come together this past month, like you were saying, Dwayne. And tonight's kind of a big test that they can continue kind of their good ways from Calgary.
I gotta say, the last month or so, I feel like the charts people have lost their minds. That's all I'm gonna say on the matter, because there was a couple games ago where they were saying the Sabres were a better team in a game when they clearly weren't. And now the thing is, we're all eyes on Colin Miller, right? Because that's the big piece we want to move. The Sabres obviously are in a position where they can take on some cap. So there is the move where they could take on, an albatross of a deal for another team to clear out some contact. Also saw that one deal from Joe DiBiase where the Lightning send us Stamkos. We just keep $4 million and then trade him right back. Like, is that even possible?
I think it's quite frowned upon.
Okay, it's quite frowned upon. Well, hey, that's not stopping the Tampa Bay Lightning recently. So we will give. But with that said, all eyes on Colin Miller here, guys. What are you thinking, looking at tonight's game? Like, is there any more focus on him? Is there anything he could do tonight to lift that value for this Sabres organization?
Stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. His biggest, got to stay healthy on the ice, do the right things, not be such a liability. I mean, his first game back, he was kind of a step behind the play, but kind of hopefully get his legs under him tonight again and raise some value. Because, I mean, the market for D-men this trade deadline's been very interesting. So hopefully the Sabres can capitalize on that and get some good return on them.
Yeah, I agree. You're seeing a lot of guys like Colin Miller, Cody Eakin, normally I would say Kyle Okposo might be on the trading block, even though he has a year left on his contract. But I don't think Buffalo wants anything to do. I mean, you would have to really offer a ransom to Buffalo right now to pry Kyle Okposo away, and I find it very different. I'm very surprised that I'm saying that, but a year ago I would have never said that. It's like, get him off my hockey team. But he has really become a valuable asset to this team, not just on the ice, and he's had a very, very good year on the ice. Surprising year. He might be a 20 goal scorer this year. Just valuable asset off the ice.
Imagine telling a Sabres fan 2 to 3 years ago that when they finally turned it around, Kyle Okposo would be like the stability in the locker room that they needed.
It's a new contract at the end of it.
Yeah,
I mean, he might be a guy they might bring back on a very team friendly deal. I mean, Kyle's made all the money he needs to make in his career, right? Like he's made a lot of money between the island and Buffalo. So I don't see him being a guy who's gonna, if he still wants to play, Buffalo will give him the option to probably stick around for another year or two, and hopefully on a team friendly deal. And I wouldn't be against that, man. In a bottom 6 role.
So with that said, laying it all on the deadline here, we got the NHL trade deadline. It will be tomorrow at 3 p.m. I want to ask you guys, when is the hot time for Kevin with the Y? My guy, by the way. My guy who's getting it turned around. And everyone sees the underlying turnaround, and they don't want to admit that he's done it, but he's doing it. When is the hot time for my guy, Kevin with the Y, to ship Colin Miller or make a move? Is it wait right up until that deadline, that 2:45 to 3:20 window where everything gets blurry, or is it like 1 p.m. or is it overnight? When's the hot time?
It'll be interesting to see, with today's lineup, because sometimes you'll see guys get held out, see, who is in the lineup, who isn't in the lineup. That could be very telling, because maybe if a Colin Miller isn't in the lineup tonight, you could maybe possibly see that that's kind of a sign of things to come, maybe either right after the game or tomorrow morning. But I can't really recall a time where Buffalo was making their moves the night before. I would say it'd be tomorrow when things really start to heat up with NHL GMs. Obviously, things have been pretty interesting in the last 48 hours. We saw Claude Giroux get shipped to the Florida Panthers in a very kind of Taylor Hall-ish situation. I think that was the only team he was really willing to go to. And you saw a guy like Hampus Lindholm get a bigger return than Claude Giroux, which I found insane. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Hampus Lindholm is a good hockey player, good defenseman. But I mean, he's no Claude Giroux, and what Claude Giroux can add to your team when you trade for him. And it was like a first, a third, and a couple cap dumps.
The NHL is always peculiar, and I've seen it now, especially the last 2 years. I mean, again, the deals have always been peculiar, but especially the last 2 years with the Hall and now this deal. Players, obviously, there's less revenues or whatever in the NHL. There's less money going around, so the contract for the superstars are less than the NBA, the MLB, and the NFL. But with that said, the players seem to have a lot more control and a lot more guarantees in their deals in the NHL than in the other sports, from what I'm seeing. I'm just like maniac talking about it.
I just when a player can control his destiny, he can really fuck up the return. And it kind of sucks that it kind of came out leading into this that Claude Giroux, it seems like his interest is to stay. He'll only go to Florida. Well, you really screw the team that you've played for the last 20 however 1,000 games. Because now you mess with their return like that, and that's where I'm kind of, I just you want to do good by the player because you respect him so much, and he's done so much for your organization. But at the same time, you're clearly in the midst of a rebuild. You're trying to get as many assets as you can. You have to do what's good for you, and granted, I think he had an NDA, no trade clause. But I mean, to let that information get out that you're only willing to lift it to go to Florida, that really, really, really hampered the return you got on him, which sucks because after seeing what Brandon Hagel got from Chicago to Tampa, which was insane, like that return, 2 first-round picks for Brandon Hagel, that's insane.
But the difference, I mean, there is a difference. And again, there's a difference too. That no trade like that. The only way that happens in the NFL is if it's like a superstar.
Yeah.
You're trading first round picks. And the difference for Tampa Bay is that they know they're really only a player away every year. So
Every year.
what do picks matter when you're literally a player away from winning the cup every single year?
They found another Blake Coleman in this guy. And Grant, is he worth what Tampa gave up? Absolutely not. No way. Not even close. But Tampa doesn't give a shit because they can give up those assets because whoever they draft in those positions at the back half of the first round, that guy's not going to be ready for 4 years. Like, if he's ever makes it to the NHL to begin with. And so they, like you said, they can afford to give up those players, but you see that return that guy gets, you're like, holy shit, like he's having a good year, but 2 first-round picks plus more, like that was insane. But I mean, Tampa is in the mode where they're trying to go for their third straight. And they obviously know you have teams to compete with Colorado, your Florida, who, my opinion, if Florida gets the goaltending, they win the cup this year, without a doubt. If Bobrovsky can be regular season Bobrovsky and not playoff Bobrovsky, they win the cup hands down this year. I don't care who they play.
Saying that is like, yeah, it's like if Frodo and Sam can get someone who knows what they're doing around Mordor, like they're gonna get that ring like destroyed.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Winning a Stanley Cup is like there's agreed. Goaltending is big. But you need everybody literally playing like the best they've ever played to win a Stanley Cup. And that's what makes the NHL so amazing. We're going to talk more on the deadline here on the Crossing Swords pregame show. We're just about 15 minutes away from Puck Drop, Vancouver, Buffalo. But of course, first, we got to pay the bills. A message from the only place to buy a
Outlet
case.
Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
So before we get into our predictions for tonight's game, I think this would bother a lot of people. Could the Sabres stand pat at the deadline and just do nothing? Is it a possibility? What would your reaction be to it, given that case? Gatesy, I want you first because I think I know what Dwayne's going to say.
I think this year's a lot different compared to previous years at the deadline. I think other years we just want to get rid of everything that wasn't a positive on-ice influence. But this year there's a lot of guys I think bring a lot to this team off the ice. If you look at someone like Craig Anderson, I know you talked about it, Dwayne, in a tweet that you should almost let it up to him. Like, he's such a leader in the locker room. And at the end of the day, like, what's kind of like a later pick or a mid-round pick going to do for this team compared to that stability, even on the ice, off the ice, that this young group needs consistency, and he's been that. The only guy that I'd be a little upset that didn't get moved is someone like Miller, because at the end of the day, like, we're having guys coming in next year. His spot's probably going to be gone. Might as well try to get something out of him, and you'll see what this team does.
I think players like Colin Miller are gone because there's always a demand for a right-handed defenseman at the deadline, and that's what Colin, like, teams are clearly. You see the overpayments at the deadline. You see the overpayments.
We're rocking out with deadline talk here on Crossing Swords Pregame with Dwayne Amania, 2 goalies, 1 mic. Make sure you're following that all day tomorrow for all the deadline action.
Yep. We'll be doing our deadline edition with Kyle Quick, returning guest. A few others, hopefully Andrew Peters, if you can find the time. I know he has his own thing going on with After the Whistle, but
if there's big Sabres news, he'll be finding the time.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll be able to hop on with us. But Colin Miller, you always see guys, teams overpaying at the deadline. You just saw it with Tampa Bay and Brandon Hagel. I personally think the Hampus Lindholm was a little bit of an overpayment. He was a left-handed shot defenseman, but I fully expect Colin Miller to be gone. I think Cody Eakin is going to get a better return than some people think, because he is easily our best face-off guy. He is a penalty killer, and I haven't been pulling my hair out this year because of Cody Eakin. Like, I know people don't think he contributes very much, and maybe offensively not so much, man, but like, I think Cody Eakin's a guy who can sit there in your bottom 6, and especially if you're retaining salary, I think he might get you, like, I'm not going to say this, he could get you a 2nd-round pick. I'm not even kidding you. He could. With it just, I remember when we traded Gostad for a first. When we traded Gostad for a first, Gostad got us a 1st-round pick, and big reason for that was because of his ability on faceoffs. He was one of the better faceoff guys in the league, and the team was willing to overpay for a faceoff guy. And I think that is valuable, especially on the kill, especially especially on in your own end on an important face-off. There's a lot of value in that, especially in the playoffs. And again, he's a great penalty killer too. So I'm not saying that I think he could get you that kind of a return.
If Eakin could go out with the neck roll and get in the Sabres a good return, you want to talk about the cherry on the top of the Triceratops poop that was his Sabres tenure. Let's go, Cody Eakin, and let's get it. And it would all be up to Kevin with the Wyatt. That's my guy, and that's why I got so much faith to get it done. I have been with him all along, and I'll be with him till the very end. I'll follow that man to hell and back. Speaking of hell and back, Sabres playing Vancouver tonight. Lay them on me, boys. What do we got for a prediction, Gatesy? Fire me up, dog.
I've been in my head ever since I said I was fading myself. I don't know what's true and what's not true right now, but I'm going to go 3-1 Sabres win. Tage Thompson, 2 goals. The other goal is last as a Sabre, Cody Eakin.
I hope so. I hope we get a lot of I hope we have actually a high scoring game tonight. I'm going to go more along the lines of a little bit higher. I'm going to say a 5-3 Buffalo win. Hopefully we get some points tonight out of Cody Eakin, Victor Olofsson, who I think is on the trade block too, and obviously Colin Miller. But also we could find out at 9 p.m. tonight that they're not even in the lineup because maybe Kevin with a Y has something in the works. So, I mean, I know who had. I know Olofsson has finally started to find the score sheet, not more consistently, but a little bit more often than he was before. Which he went like 30 games without scoring a goal, which was absolute insanity. But Cody Eakin too, like he hasn't been playing bad. Just keep these guys rolling, and hopefully we can get a good return for him. And I don't be surprised, honest to God, do not be surprised if Buffalo is a buyer at the deadline because they are actively searching for a defenseman to play with Owen Power, who they expect to debut with them this year. And I think if I'm Kevin Adams, I would like to find that guy before the season's over with so you can get games with them together this season rather than next. So there's been a lot of smoke around that they're looking for that defenseman to play alongside Owen, which I'm not against either. So
speaking of defensemen to play along with, Dahlin was playing very well, and now Henry's back, and the chart people are saying he's not playing as well. So real quick, before we go, game time pregame here, Crossing Swords pregame. Are you for Jokiharju with Dahlin or out on Jokiharju with Dahlin?
I mean, if you're even with the eye test, they've been difficult to watch. But listen, I respect analytics. I really, really do. But I've seen games where analytically Buffalo should have won this year. But then when you watch it, you're like, should have won. They played terrible. The Columbus
game was the worst.
There was
thing I've
I didn't
seen.
want to hear
the fact that anyone said they should have won that game was unfathomable.
And honestly, until you have a team on the ice that look like when you put it won't be until you put a team on the ice that you're confident in that's your team going forward. That's what you envision. That's what you're trying to build. It's not until then, and especially with a goalie that you can depend on to play 50 to 60 games a year, it's not until then you can really start making these judgment calls on players like Dahlin. And I think Dahlin's had a great year. I really do, especially since coming back from the All-Star break. I think he's played phenomenally, like very, very, very well. Even if you want to look at the analytics and say, his game has come down on the charts since Henry's come back. I mean, I still think Dahlin stands out, as a player who's continues to excel and
the chart people do admit that his numbers are still good on the charts. They're just trending downwards now that he's back. Yeah. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see if the Sabres can keep this momentum. I mean, 4 out of 5 wins. That would have to be the first time in a minute, probably since the beginning of the season for this team.
Live on the Crossing Swords podcast after it just announced he has assigned an 8-year extension with the Bruins, Hampus Lindholm. 8 years, $6.5 million. So that kind of that's an interesting number for a guy like him because I thought he was going to get paid more. I thought he was going to get paid a lot more.
Lynn, who? We're talking Sabres here, Dwayne.
I know, but
I'm not going to sit here and yell and scream about it because I think I've done enough of that already.
Yeah, well said, Dwayne. We have done enough of that already. Thanks for tuning in here on the Crossing Swords podcast. A huge shout out to our panel, Gatesy, Dwayne O'Mania. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. Make sure you're following him for all things Sabres, because here at Crossing Swords, it is all about 3 words.
let's go Buffalo.